Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:07 on O'Connor and Company. Boy, what a busy Monday we've got. We're already falling a little behind here because of our conversation with Tom Fitton, an eye-opening and sober one at that. Coming up in 30 minutes, Tom Holbert, American Veterans Center, about Memorial Day and the parade coming up. And 8:05, Representative Andy Harris, he's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. All eyes on that caucus as the big, beautiful bill, the tax bill, makes its way through the House. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
The Biden-Hur tapes were released on Friday. That probably began the cascade of events that led to the revelation that Joe Biden is suffering from a very advanced form of prostate cancer last night. But let's go back to Friday for a moment. We've been wanting these audio tapes forever. This is an interview that took place during his presidency. The result of this interview was that U.S. Attorney Robert Hur determined that regardless of whether Joe Biden had violated the law with his mishandling of classified documents or not, there's no way a jury would convict him because his memory was so bad he would come across as an unreliable witness for himself. Finally, the audio came out, and here's a good example. He was asked, "Where did you keep your papers?" Very simple question. He then went on a 4-minute rambling response, including this little tidbit.
What was happening, though, 1 month ago, dying, May 30th, 2018. 2015 he died?
May 2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was That's right, Mr. President.
Yeah, he was reminded when his son died because he claimed that it was 2017 when his son died, or was deployed. He wasn't sure. But, of course, he died in 2015. Deployment was well earlier than that. Joe diGenova joins us now, former U.S. Attorney to the District of Columbia. Well, Joe, by the way, we never got an answer in that rambling response about where he kept his papers, except he eventually said, "I don't know," which is another disconcerting event. First of all, on this itself, Mr. Hur, I think, was so unfairly maligned by the organized left in this country. He certainly comes across as a sympathetic figure here in all of this, doesn't he?
Well, he did his job, as far as anybody can tell. I remain agnostic about Mr. Hur. I do not, first of all, the criticism of him was ludicrous, obviously, at the time, and it was partisan. It's sort of the Jen Psaki way of responding to everything about Biden, and that is you just lie. And that's what they did, and that's why they lost the election in 2024. 4 years of lying, unmitigated lying. And then when you learn about the physical and mental condition of the president, it's pretty obvious. Her is a footnote because we didn't need her and we didn't need the tapes. Everybody who's a sentient being knew that Joe Biden was incompetent. And here's the thing about the prostate cancer. I've had prostate cancer. I've had surgery. I've had radiation. I've had all the treatments that you can have for prostate cancer. And here's what's really frightening about this. You're going to tell me that the White House doctor didn't know that Joe Biden had prostate cancer. That is ridiculous. The White House doctor had to know that Joe Biden had prostate cancer. This cancer that he has been around for a while. It didn't happen over 90 days. This happened over a number of years. This is a Gleason 9 prostate cancer. This has gone to the bone. It has migrated. The questions now are for the White House physician. He needs to be brought before Capitol Hill, if not a grand jury, and to answer questions. Nothing that the White House counsel's report, White House doctor's report, which was released publicly, indicated any prostate cancer, which means, I got to tell you, means the doctor knew and he didn't disclose it.
Joe,
no doctor is that bad to miss this.
And of course, that means also his wife knew, family knew, and probably close advisors knew. Joe, Ed Martin, as you know, is now in charge of President Trump's pardon department there at the Justice Department. He announced that the integrity of the American pardon system requires that we examine the Biden pardons and who did what. We'll get to the bottom of it. Count on us. With this new information, with the revelation of how he was behind closed doors when he was making decisions like who gets a pardon, and especially the flurry of pardons, most of which were signed with a auto pen in those final weeks of his presidency, final hours of his presidency. Is it possible that any of these pardons could be overturned?
It is possible, but it is not likely. The pardon power is purposely broad and unlimited. There are no limitations. There's nobody that can stop it. There's no court review. However, a pardon has to be a real pardon. It has to be done, presented for signature, and signed. Did that happen here? That's a very important question, and it is worthy of a grand jury. This is not for congressional hearings. This is a grand jury. If, in fact, the people who executed the pen, the auto pen, did not have authority, were simply doing these things seriatim without direct consultation with the president because he was not available or wasn't competent enough mentally to give consent, that's a crime. The execution of a federal document as part of official business, that is a fraud on the American people. It's wire fraud, mail fraud, you name it. So Congress can hold hearings, but let me just tell you something. People are just going to take the fifth up on Capitol Hill about this.
Right.
They go before a grand jury. They can take the fifth, and then they can be immunized. Then they have to testify. Congress is not suited for this. They think they are, but they're not. This is one of many, many things that the weaponization group should look at. I consider the issuance of these pardons to be weaponization.
Do you think that the Justice Department will think it's worth it if people are going to take the fifth, then given immunity, then there's no one left to charge? Do you think they'll actually do this?
I think it's better to do that than do nothing, because you were talking to Tom Fitton, and you sensed in him a disappointment, a concern. Yeah. And the reason for that is very simple. People want closure. And by closure, they mean accountability. And accountability is not a congressional hearing. People will not be satisfied with reports, with interviews, with congressional hearings. They want grand juries. This is important. If you don't get to this, and by the way, people have to remember this, read the weaponization memo from Pam Bondi. It only covers a 4-year period. It covers weaponization from the Biden administration, from the beginning of it until the end. It covers nothing before that. It doesn't talk about 2015, 16, 17, when all of Russiagate was underway. I'm sure there's a good reason for it. I don't know what it is, but I bless them for at least having gone this far. So Ed Martin will have an opportunity to look into all of this.
Joe, before we move on to the other stories, and we're going to have to keep you over for a second segment, does this require a direction from the President of the United States? Pam Bondi, as Attorney General, can she direct this? Can the FBI Director, Kash Patel, decide that's it? Let's go with all of this. What's the best path for this?
Kash Patel does not have the authority to start these investigations. I mean, they can do preliminary stuff, but the Attorney General is the one who decides what cases are prosecuted, not the FBI Director. That's the famous James Comey scene where he decided there wouldn't be a prosecution of Hillary Clinton. That was not his decision to make. Loretta Lynch should have fired him that day, but she was a useless appendage. She wasn't a real Attorney General. She was a fake Attorney General. Any Attorney General worth his or her stuff would have called Jim Comey on the phone and say, Jim, don't bother to come in tomorrow morning. You're fired. The answer is the president shouldn't have to do this, and I don't think he will. I think with Pam Bondi and all the people around her, Todd Blanche, and all the other people, Emil Bowe, I think they've decided they're going to prosecute these cases. They're trying not to be public about it. They're trying not to politicize it. And I expect them to do what needs to be done. I think there will be federal grand juries looking into this.
Yeah, I think you're right, too. I certainly pray you're right. Joe diGenova, stay right there. We got more. It's 7:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Joe, another follow-up question on this. If you work in the White House and you have direct knowledge that the president has some sort of illness or potentially some sort of cognitive delay or cognitive inability to perform his function. I want people who know that to come forward and be honest with the American people, But is it illegal if they don't? If you have this information and you, or for that matter, if you're challenged like Karine Jean-Pierre or Jen Psaki and you lie about it, is that criminal behavior?
It depends on the circumstances. If it's part of a conspiracy to deny the American people access to information that they have a constitutional right to, if it's designed to cover up illegal acts by members of the staff, for example, executing documents that they have no authority to execute, which enact things into law, which grant pardons, the answer is yes. If they have knowledge and they don't come forward, they have to come forward. If they are confronted and they lie, that's a crime. Everybody with knowledge has a civic duty and a legal duty to come forward when things are illegal. You have a duty to do that. Now, the question of when that failure to come forward becomes a criminal act depends a lot. It depends upon the facts and circumstances. Were you part of the conspiracy? Did you know about it and you were afraid to come forward? Why didn't you come forward? Listen, that's what grand juries are for. They fill out all these questions. They make sure that you get answers. For example, let's go back to Russiagate, Comey, Baker, Strzok, McCabe, Page. All of those people clearly designed a strategy to deny Donald Trump his civil rights as a private citizen and as a sitting president. Does anybody in their right mind think that should not be investigated as a crime to deny Donald Trump his civil rights? It's open and shut. This stuff is there. And so I'm quite sure that Pam Bondi, who's a really fine lawyer, and Todd Blanche, who's a really fantastic lawyer, as you can see from the way he represented Donald Trump, I'm sure that they're all over this. The issue is they have to pick the right moments. They have to find prosecutors they want to put in charge of these cases. And remember, this is only a little more than 100 days. People can't expect all this stuff to happen right away. And I understand Tom Fitton's concern, and it's justified. And I say everybody should stay concerned and put pressure on and make sure that they do their job.
Joe, it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was only a couple of days ago when James Comey saw seashells by the seashore.
Yeah.
And then spoke to the Secret Service. So there's a whole lot of S's going on there. You saw the 8647 post. Do you believe it's – well, two questions. Do you believe that was a credible threat against the president or could be interpreted as something that could inspire someone else to do harm to the president? And secondly, did he lie? Do you think he carried forward those lies to the Secret Service when he was questioned about whether he just discovered those shells and whether he had any idea that 8647 could be interpreted as some kind of violent act?
Well, this incident did not happen in a vacuum. There is a history with James Comey being anti-Trump, of being violently anti-Trump, verbally and every other way, mocking the presidency, mocking the use of the FBI and going into the White House to interview General Flynn and other people. No, without a doubt, James, first of all, I'm sure they wanted to know where the beach was. The Secret Service wanted to know, where was your wife with you? Was she with you? Who else was with you? Did you put the shells down or did you find them? I mean, there's all sorts of questions that I'm sure. The interview was well over an hour, I understand. And then they interviewed his wife, or she's about to be interviewed, which is absolutely essential. Whether or not she will invoke the spousal privilege is a very interesting question. She has a right to. They're married. At least I assume they're married. They say they are. And then that, she would be able to refuse to testify on that basis. But we'll see. I don't know. I think clearly it deserves investigation, not because of if this were a single thing, that would be one thing, but it's not. It's part of a pattern of James Comey attacking the President of the United States. It is not isolated. And also who he is. He is the former FBI director. He is the former Deputy Attorney General of the United States. He knows things. He knows the law. He understands this. In my opinion, my humble opinion, he did this purposely. And it was designed to create an atmosphere around the president of danger.
He's also selling a book. And this was, to me, designed to get him in the media because he's a forgettable person. And so he's got to do these stunts every once in a while to get back in the media. And this is going to help sell books because he'll be a hero to the left and they'll sell his book to support him, or they'll buy his book rather to support him.
Yeah. Well, none of his books has been successful. So this will be another one on the shelf. I'm sure he has a fabulous 5-foot bookshelf stuffed with his own books. But That's not the issue right now. I mean, it may have been a motivating factor. In fact, I think it was probably to get publicity. So yeah, let's put our thinking cap on here. Just in the middle of putting out a book, promoting a book, he accidentally comes across 8647 on a beach somewhere and sends it out and does an Instagram post about it. Just happened to happen just then. Did he, in fact, put those shells down on the beach? That's what I want to know.
Joe diGenova, we literally could talk another hour with you, but we're out of time. We'll have to save it for another time, or we'll do a bonus feature sometime soon. Joe, always great to talk with you. Thank you, sir.
And the same to you guys. Bye-bye.
It's 7:24. Time for a brand new chapter of WMAL's Military Medicine Minute, powered by Humana Military and the Friends of Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences. During the Vietnam War, deep in the jungle, soldiers faced a hidden enemy. Allergic reactions. Bee stings, food, even insect bites could trigger deadly anaphylaxis. Military doctors needed a fast, reliable way to deliver life-saving medication in the field. Enter the automatic injector, developed for the U.S. military to quickly administer nerve agent antidotes. The EpiPen was invented by Sheldon Kaplan in the mid-1970s while working at Survival Technology, Inc. in Bethesda, Maryland. Originally, Kaplan was developing an auto-injector for the U.S. military to deliver antidotes. Later, scientists adapted the same tech to deliver epinephrine, and the EpiPen was born. What started as a battlefield tool became a civilian lifesaver. Today, millions carry EpiPens in backpacks, purses, classrooms, ready to stop allergic reactions in seconds. From chemical warfare to peanut allergies, one invention bridged two worlds and saved countless lives. And that's it for another Military Medicine Minute. Coming up, we'll give you a preview with a big surprise announcement about next week's Memorial Day Parade. Keep it here.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:37, and it's Monday morning, the 19th day of May, and we're trying to hit all the stories that mean the most to you. Coming up at 8:05, Representative Andy Harris. He's the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, and that big, beautiful bill, that tax cut that you expect, it has to go through Chairman Harris and his committee, so we'll get to that. The caucus, I should say. It's Larry O'Connor alongside the effervescent Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning. 1 week from today is Memorial Day, and it always hits home a little extra special here in Washington, D.C. because of the incredible memorials here in Arlington National Cemetery and, of course, our Memorial Day Parade. This year presented by Boeing, Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. It'll be a week from today, and Tim Holbert is the president of the American Veterans Center. He joins us now to give us a preview and I understand a pretty big announcement, Tim. First of all, happy Memorial Day in advance. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, let's get to it. It's pretty big news here. You've announced a headliner for this event, and it's someone who, my brothers and I are big fans of.
Absolutely. Well, obviously a huge event coming up, but next week we're really excited to include in this year's National Memorial Day Parade. Rock legend Gene Simmons is one of our folks joining from the rock band Kiss. Of course, we all know Kiss, grew up listening to Kiss, but very few of us know that 80 years ago this month, Gene's mother was liberated from a Nazi concentration camp by American soldiers at the end of World War II. And so really it was the American soldier of World War II that made all the music that we know and love possible. And just one of those examples of the sacrifices that made it happen. And joining Gene as well will be a veteran who helped take part in the liberation of that camp, still surviving at 100 years old. So very special day. Just, again, sums up what the entire day is about.
Will he be in full demon costume and makeup?
You know what? You'll have to come on out and see. We'll find out.
There it is. Nice.
Well, in addition to, and that is a huge announcement and very exciting, but this year's parade will also feature a number of World War II heroes that are, sort of still alive and thriving, and they're going to be there as well. Tell us about these veterans.
Exactly right. This does mark the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II this summer. So coming out all, again, about 100 years old and older in several cases, surviving veterans of World War II, representing all 16 million who served, but especially, of course, with Memorial Day, the 400,000 who made the ultimate sacrifice. Of that 16 million plus who served, there's fewer than 50,000 still alive. So we really are in those last moments to thank firsthand, personally, those from our greatest generation before they're all gone.
People will be surprised that the Memorial Day Parade is, a relatively new event here in Washington, D.C. This is the 20th anniversary, right?
That's right. 20 years ago, it was in 2004, the year prior, the World War II Memorial was dedicated on the National Mall. I'm sure many of us remember when that happened. World War II vets from around the country, thousands and thousands of them here in town. And so the American Veterans Center was asked to help organize a parade for the vets who are here in town. We didn't know anything about parades, but obviously for the World War II generation, we would do anything. And so did that parade and realized there hadn't been a parade here along Constitution Avenue in Washington since 1942 in World War II. Brought it back the next year as the National Memorial Day Parade in 2005. And 20 years later, the biggest Memorial Day event in the country.
Amazing. And this year is remarkable. The president has already talked about wanting to do a big parade on Flag Day this year, which also will mark the 250th birthday of the Army, the Navy, and the Marine Corps, because that's when the Constitutional Congress authorized George Washington to lead a military effort against the British there defending the colonies. It's also, as you said, 80th anniversary of the end of World War II, 75th anniversary of the start of the Korean War, and 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. Everything's converging this year.
Absolutely. In this military world, this is such a huge year, 250 years of service and sacrifice all being commemorated this year. So, every year Memorial Day is special, but to think of 250 years of sacrifice this year makes it a little bit extra special and motivating for all of us who are looking to bring us all together for a reminder of what we have in common that weekend.
I really encourage people in this area and even outside. We people listen to us all over the world to even come into D.C. for this, because especially if you have kids, it is really important for children to see these heroes. And the Grand Marshals are going to be a contingent of Medal of Honor recipients. Tell us about that.
That's right. With this 250th birthday of the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps, we were looking for what is a story that really would just speak to that legacy of sacrifice and honor of our military across the generations. And of course, Medal of Honor recipients are sort of the pinnacle of that representation. Yeah. So they'll be leading us as Grand Marshals this year. And you're absolutely right. When you come out, the parade itself is organized as kind of a timeline of American history. And so historical reenactors, we have the George Washington from Mount Vernon, Abraham Lincoln, all the way through to actual veterans from World War II through present day and active duty personnel, nearly 1,000 of them. So for families, it's a chance to not just come out and thank, of course, our fallen heroes and those who have served, but also to just learn a little bit about that legacy of sacrifice across the generations.
Well, we very much appreciate you and all the work you do all year round, but certainly focusing on next week's Memorial Day Parade. Tim Holbert, president of American Veterans Center. Thank you, sir, for joining us, and have a great Memorial Day.
Thanks for having me. You too. Thank you very much.
7:43.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Well, for a moment there, it appeared as though the city of New York was under attack from the Mexican Navy. The Mexican Navy circa 1885, because it was a giant tall ship with, sails and masts and all those things that Navy people understand. With a huge Mexican flag unfurled, it rammed into the Brooklyn Bridge. Devastating, actually. 2 people lost their lives in this accident.
Yes.
And it was, in fact, so one person posted the video, Julie, and said a giant party boat with a Mexican flag just jammed into it. Because it did. It had all its lights ablazing, like Christmas lights. It looked like they were having a party on the boat. But it was actually a training vessel used in the Mexican Navy, and they were up doing a demonstration on a goodwill mission to New York Harbor. And this was actually meant to be a preview because in the 250th anniversary of our Declaration of Independence next year, they're going to be having a huge armada of tall ships which is always a stunning thing to see.
It is sad. These Mexican sailors actually harness themselves. They snap into the masts. And I saw pictures over the weekend of these sort of shows of them, rows of people. There's 3 masts, rows of people lining these masts. It's really disappointing that, it's confusing to me, and I don't think the full story is out here, because they lost power and they were drifting towards the bridge, and a tugboat was employed, but the tugboat didn't have a line attached, and so it was able to push it sort of slightly from a direct hit to a sort of a side hit, but those people were still on those masts. I don't know why they weren't able to descend. It wasn't super fast.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's a slow motion situation.
Yeah.
That's the explanation, is that it lost power. Of course, the sails were not unfurled, so they couldn't use any wind power. And, they need to have, obviously, a major investigation into this. It's terrible, horrible. And you're right. We need to get the full story on this. One thing, though, the Brooklyn Bridge appears to be completely unscathed. The oldest suspension bridge in America, I believe.
They built things right back then.
Oh boy, I love that bridge so much, and the story of the engineering and the construction of that bridge is one of the greatest achievements of the industrial age. And no, you're not going to mess with the Brooklyn Bridge. You're not going to mess with Brooklyn. It's 7:53. Coming up, all eyes are on the House of Representatives as the committee process continues for the big, beautiful bill. That would be the reconciliation package. That would be your tax cuts. How's it going to work, and will they get the votes? We'll talk to the chairman of the House Freedom Caucus, Congressman Andy Harris, next.